You know, as a child in that age, you have a lot on your mind, a lot of ideas, a lot of thinking about why things are happening. And, growing in a working class family at the time with my mother who would leave and go to work very early in the mornings and come back late. She was very strict, trying to protect us, I guess, I think in hindsight, and very religious. My mom was a Christian whom would go to church almost on a Tuesday when she comes back from work, will go to church in the evening and come back at night at around 9. Thursdays, the same, Saturday and Sunday. And in the teaching and preachings at church, one would have this thing that, they would be praying, they would say, all those that are in church who go according to the word and things that are said in the Bible, God is going to look after them and all of that. But, I had this deeper conversation with myself, which one of the things, because would come back to school and there's no bread, in the bin, and because my school was just one street away from my home, so me and my brother at the time would come back during lunch hour, would walk home. Because we do not want to sit with other kids who've got lunch boxes because we didn't have. So we'd come back home, sit around the house, close the door so that nobody sees that we are sitting and we've got nothing to eat. And then when it's almost time to go back, we'll hear other kids calling us on the street. So we'll go join them, walk back, without anybody saying that we have not eaten. This thing became a question in my mind because every time my mom would come back, she would pray when she's coming in the house. First thing she closed the door of praise, and every time when she leaves. I remember having this conversation with myself that she always had this thing that God will provide. And, for me, it didn't make sense. God will provide. I go to the bin, there's no bread. She has prayed. So what is happening here? Over and above exactly being denied access. But also the most important thing to remember during that time, it was during the time of the riots, the school riots, the 1985 boycotts and the time. I remember because in my home, it was a very strict family. I was not allowed to participate in other school activities other than something that is only, approved by the school, either a church group in school. So during that time, I think during that period, I saw this thing, there were these people called Ama Comrade in the schools because others would be taken away, during that time by their families to go and study, maybe in the Eastern Cape or others, because there was those riots. So it was when I think I listened to some of these people. They would come into our classes, we would call into mass meetings, and then I had these people talking about, no, there is a system. Why, as Black people, why we do not have books, sufficient textbooks, why, our classes, the conditions of our classes, why we do not have sufficient teachers, and other things. So this is when I got to understand. It was once going into those kind of meetings. And then I started saying, I think there is something that what is happening in church where I'm going to and I'm trying to find my answers, and what these people are talking about in my school, which actually is explaining my situation, because here I was indeed denied access.
How did you get involved in activism? And yeah, when did you also start to get involved with it?
I think during that time, in the mid 80s, influenced by these meetings, which of course, because my mother was coming back very late, around 6. So these meetings would normally sit either during the time of disruption of the school when it's boycott. So remember, when it's boycott, others do not go to school, but those who are comrades, they will go to school, for meetings, briefing each other. So my mom would have an expectation that I'm not going to school because it's boycott, but I will go to school because I was so fascinated by this new information that I've had. So I will go there. Or when it's schools are back to normal, these meetings will sit after school, which is after 2. So I will sit because I knew that my mom is not there and she's not going to catch me. So I will sit, listen to these meetings. So I started there being conscientized because in those meetings, we would be told things. But another important experience that actually happened is that when I was in my community, there were some ladies. There's a lady, she died, Mamuloza at the time, who was just one street away from my home. So she was one of these active ladies who likes to, organize kids in the street. So we knew they had a television at the time in their house, which, I mean, not all families did have. So she would organize, some sittings of children to do drama, whatever. So every time in the afternoon when you come back from school, you would go there. But in her house, there would always be a lot of other women. They will play VHS at that time, and sometimes they will sit us down to watch. And it was movies. Later on, we understood of comrades, because you would see, some white people, rushing after black people, shooting at them, others singing, and also we would be organized and taught to sing some songs, which were liberation songs at that time. We were called into a group, we were called Ama Pioneer at the time. So we didn't understand at the time what it was. But these women, whilst they were busy, either in the living room or in the kitchen, talking whatever they are talking, they would either teach us drama, and there would be a group in my area, which was section 4. Sometimes we would be taken to another section to meet with other kids, But also there was a reverend, which was very close to my grandma, by clan name, Reverend Mahau, who had a kumbi. So during every Sundays, he would take kids, and he didn't care which church you belong to. And because we enjoyed going into the car, so he would take us as a group into the car, and we go into my school, which was just closer to my home, because this is where he used to congregate. So when we get there, he was a very funny reverend, because we would sing the church songs and everything. But in between, he will talk using the Bible. He will talk about what was happening around our communities, what was happening, in South Africa, why we as Black people. And then one of the things we would experience when we are there, sometimes, the security forces would come, with their big Caspers at the time. And then you'll find them, coming into the school on a Sunday and coming into our church, and we didn't understand. Sometimes we will be called outside, and you hear him explaining that, no, this is just a church, so then they would leave. So we had these constant things, and he would explain this to us. So I'm just trying to explain to you my journey of being conscientized. And after these meetings and all of these things, from that time, from a higher primary right into high school, this is then my full-blown activism, because I started in the school. We had guys who were much more older than us, who would recruit us, and they would tell us that, they are working underground. And therefore, they would invite us as few people, into meetings. And we would meet in things we used to call checkpoints at the time. Like either they will come to school and they would sit with us, like, we're having an extra tutorial maybe later in the afternoon after school. Then they will start telling us about, the ANC and all of this, and what we need to do at the time. We didn't understand, at the time, but we're interested. We started now and feeling very excited to be comrades ourselves. So we learned those kind of skills during that time.
What was a big event or a major event that you were a part of, or you experienced?
Oh, there were a number of them. If I remember, during our times, we would be part of, trying to organize meetings, as the different, we had an organization then called WEXCO, Western Cape Student Congress, which was an amalgamation of the different area student formations. Like, as I was saying, I was in Tosco, We had other colored comrades of ours who were in Mitchell's Plain Student Congress, MIPSCO, Bontiville Student Congress, BOSCO, and others. So sometimes we'll have a joint meetings. I remember the community halls we used to use is Ikwezi community halls. We would have meetings there, we call them general councils. After those meetings, as we leave those meetings, or even before we finish, we would be told that, A, the police are around. And when the police are around, they will stand in front and they will call with a loudspeaker that they are giving us maybe 5 or 10 minutes. We must leave there, stop what we are doing, and sometimes we would sing whilst they're doing that, and they will throw the hand grenades there, and then we will be running, and then they will be starting to chase us, and some would be beaten. And I mean, it was a very scary thing. Fortunately, between NY2, where this community hall is, there are houses. So we'll be running into those houses. And sometimes in other houses, we'll be chased because people were afraid that, look, if they keep us, the police will come into the house, bang the doors, and will be arrested. So you would have to jump the next house, and when you jump the next house, the reality of the matter is that, you may actually get hurt in the process. I remember one of the girls, actually, she died, who also was arrested, who was a women convener before me, so there were a few girls that would be arrested, but the guys would try and make it a point that, immediately once there is something and they could see that the police are charging on us, they would try and quickly, get us out and find us a safe place. So these were the kind of activities that we were involved in at the time. But I remember into these underground meetings, one of the booklets I normally even share with others to date, that, information really is power. This is how I learned in the struggle, is that we used to be given a book, and it was not a book, it was just a pamphlet. It was saying, know your rights behind bars. This know your rights behind bars, I remember it had a picture of someone who was, standing just in front of a cell, gates, and you were there were then some lines that were telling you, if you get arrested, what you do, if police do not want to provide you this and this, these are your rights.